Welcome to the a week 09 video. This will be GA05 part 1. We'll have at least 2 parts for GA05. In this part we will connect to a MySQL database, we'll create a table, and we will add records. First of all, to connect to a SQL database, you need to have a few things. You need to have a database that exists. First of all, you can set that up. I have set up databases for everyone. There was an announcement. The naming convention for the databases basically follows this. It looks something like F09, your last name, and then 01. For those of you with similar last names or the same last names, I have your database as F09, your last name, and first name, and then a 01. Anyway, check the announcement for your database. It's the first thing to know. This is your database name. You also have a database username. Your database username is probably DB, stands for database, of course, your last name, and then 01. So my last name is Mohle, so my database name is DBMOHLE01. Password is by default all password. I realize this is not secure at all, but that's okay. This is just an academic course. We're just starting to get started here. We may talk about security later on in the course. The last thing you'll need for connection is the domain that houses your database. Our domain is not our subdomain, it's our main domain, CITFCC.com. Okay, so it's the main domain that Rio has set up for us, CITFCC.com. To connect, we use MySQL. This is all in Chapter 9, by the way. MySQLI, the I stands for improved, _ connect. Our style is to have all lowercase, so it's MySQL _ connect. Left parenthesis, this is a MySQL function. You don't have to import anything. This function just works here. This function will return a connection. So by default, we have to create a variable. We'll create a variable by default with a by convention with the name dbconnect. You'll see this in textbooks and on the web as well for instruction. This could be anything. It could be $ Donald Duck, but that wouldn't be very descriptive. So this is how we make a connection to our database. We have a variable dbconnect, assignment operator, then MySQL I _ connect. The first parameter, first argument being passed in is CITFCC.com. Notice that is a literal string. There are double quote marks, a comma, this is a comma, and then another in double quotes, the user name. There should only be one user in your database, and I have specified that in the announcement. The username for this one is dbmole01, comma, and then another literal string. This is the password, it's all lowercase, and then the name of your database. And the statement is terminated here. The first thing that I like to do is to echo my connection. Your connection will be shown with a function named MySQLi _ get host info. So this function, if you pass it the connection that you just created here, it will give you the host connection. Same thing with client version, MySQLi get client info. This doesn't have any arguments. The protocol version, just for grins, get protocol, get proto info. Again, pass that db connect. Get server info, pass it db connect. When you create a connection, you always need to close it, otherwise strange things will happen, and you just close it. So let's take a look and see how my code works. My code is in the week 09. 09 directory, and it is this one here, dbconnect.php. So when I run that, this is all that happens. This is my connection. It's TCP/IP, of course, the client version, protocol. These were all in MySQL. We're running MySQL version 5.0.84, and those were all echoed with PHP functions. I've added a new feature here. I'm trying out this a little bit. I have a little button here, view source code. This is done traversing the XML root on the DOM, and it uses getElementID and interactively creates the PHP code. The PHP code here is not exact. Of course, you have to fill in the less than sign and the greater than sign down here. Same thing with the statement terminators, they're missing. But let's go ahead and review. The DB connect is just a variable. MySQLi connect with 3 arguments. The first argument is citfcc.com. Second argument is your username. This is not your subdomain username, but is your database username that I set up for everyone. Password should be the same for everyone. Password, then the name of your database. And this example, we are just getting some information about our database, and we are just echoing that to the screen. So that's all there is for DB Connect. And next we will look at how to create a table in our database. We just validated our connection here. Now let's look at creating a table. The create table command, after you have the connection done, you'll have a lot of confidence. If you want to, you can display the connection information that was displayed in DB Connect. That's fine, but I will go through this without that. Here you can see it's our same connection, so MySQLi connect, and this time we create what's called a SQL string. The SQL string is just a literal text string, so it begins with a double quote, ends in a double quote. Technically, SQL strings are terminated with the statement terminator. The same thing as in PHP with a semicolon. If you omit the semicolon, notice it is inside the double quote here, so it makes it inside the string. If you omit that, it will still work. But just when you do some reading about SQL, you'll see that for some legacy systems, the statement terminator is in fact required. In SQL, although it doesn't matter, this is all in Chapter 9 and some in Chapter 8. The SQL reserved words, we will, by convention, make them all caps. Our user defined identifiers are in mixed case, just like we've been doing. So create and table are SQL reserved words. We're going to create a table. We're going to name that whatever we want. I've chosen to name this with the prefix TBL. It's kind of access-like, but for beginning database instruction, it serves its purpose well. This again is my first field name. It's called player name. Varchar means variable character. Inside the parentheses, I give it a width of 25. My next field is defined as player num, and it has a varchar of 2. That means a field width of 2. Finally, player team, varchar of 3. To execute my query, and this is a new method, a new PHP function, we'll use the MySQLi underscore query. So we're executing a query. To this we pass 2 arguments. The first argument that we've seen before is our connection. So pass it our connection, and then comma, pass it our string. This scary statement here, and again this is in Chapter 9, the or die, it just means that this is actually part of this statement, the or die. It's just in error checking. If this statement, if something happened with our query execute here, the die would terminate our code, and it would actually give us some error code and try to recover from the error as best it could. This is all one statement. It starts here and ends here with the statement terminator. And then I like to echo the query result, see if that was successful. We'll know if it was successful because our code would have terminated here. I also like to echo the SQL string when you're first learning SQL to see exactly how your string looks to your program. It's very nice to display the SQL string. It's comforting to give your user a message, a success message, which I've done here. And again, once we have opened a connection, you need to close it. So let's go ahead and run our create table code. Instead of db connect, it will be db create table. Okay, that seemed to run just fine. The query result is 1, which means success. Here's the SQL string that I was talking about. You can see here this is exactly the string that your PHP program sees. So create table, uppercase, very good. Varchar is a reserved word, varchar reserved word, and is terminated with a statement terminator with a semicolon. We echoed successfully created the table. Click on view our source code and let's take a look at our code again. Connection is the same. SQL string, this is new with a double quote here. Let's see, it's wrapping around. I need to make my div a little bit larger here for this to be on one line. It should be a double quote here. This is just emulated code here. I actually had to do some tweaking to see. I'll show you how I did it maybe tomorrow, but in the next video there should be a terminating double quote here. The query result or die, this is all one statement. You need a statement terminator here as well as here. The with my little code emulation program, it's in JavaScript, so the statement terminators were messing up my string. This was just the most expeditious way I could get it out, so you'll have to modify this code for your purposes. Notice here also, you can go to my website and run this. You can just type in week 09 db create table PHP, but if you do that again, you get this code, unable to execute the query because the table already exists. I'll show you how to delete a table. It's with a drop, and you'll have to drop a table. You can't obviously create a table twice. The next thing we'll do, let's go ahead and add some records to our newly created table. And to add records, very similar to creating a table, we create a SQL string, only now our SQL string is insert into the table. The table has to exist, of course. So insert into the table you just created, values, left paren, single quotation mark, and then an argument for the value that is going to be in that first field. So remember, our first field was player name, so we have up to 25 characters we could input here. I'll put in David Ortiz, and David Ortiz is delimited by single quotes. This is important because we have single quotes inside double quotes. When you're first starting to code SQL, this will give you fits. But this is correct here. Hopefully this will be easy going for you when you first start out. My next argument is the player number, jersey number. It's a varchar 2, so David Ortiz is 22, comma, BOS for Boston. And again, we terminate the SQL statement, delimit it with a double quote, and terminate our PHP statement. This is one PHP statement here. Our query result here is going to be just the same thing we ran as we ran before. Some of you out there might be wondering, well, why don't I just create a nice function for this and just pass things into it? You certainly can do that, but this is the kind of a long method to do this. And I have my error checking or die here. This is all one statement. Oh, actually, this is all one statement. The or here. There you go. This is all one statement. Your statement, if you just terminated your statement right here, if I just put a semicolon here and commented this out, it would still run. It's just that it wouldn't have this nice recovery if an error occurred. This is called error or exception handling. So I want to insert 3 records, so I do this 3 times. And that's it. At the end of this, I should have inserted 3 players into table players. Let's go ahead and run that code now. So this will be db add records. Add records PHP. I didn't have anything echoed to my user for success. I had failure, I guess, with the or dies there, but I don't have anything here for success, so this doesn't show anything, but I'm sure that I've added those records. Click on the source code, take a quick look at that. Here's our connection string, SQL string. It is just a literal string, and my execute is right here. I will execute 1, 2, 3. Actually, I did this for I may have done this 5 times. So David Ortiz twice. I don't check for duplicates here in my table. I'll have a lot of players to look at when we look at the next video for display records. This will conclude GA05 video part 1. We covered validating a connection to the database, creating a table, and adding records.